How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Samach Aleph, Daf 61 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, your friends. Today's Daf is a little bit boring. Oh gosh, did I just say that? Oh, oops. No, it's really not boring. It's a little boring. Well, it's not boring in the boring sense. It's boring in like a boring kind of sense. Did you understand that? It's really not boring is what I'm trying to say. It's just boring. I guess it's not. But it's not really that boring. That's alright, let's just go weiter. Alright, alright. It's really not that boring. But it's also not that interesting. But it's also not that okay, I don't really know how to describe this stuff. You'll see. I just don't know what it is. It's not that long. It's not that hard. It's not that interesting. It just like is what it is, I guess, Okay. Now that I've whet your appetites, but again, it's not bad. Okay, let's just jump in. I don't want you to think badly about Daf Samach Aleph, even though I just said it's not good, but it's really fine. Let's go weiter. I just think we have to go weiter kind of thing. Yeah, I felt that that way about yesterday's Daf a little bit. At certain points, when you just gotta get through them. Okay, over Goder Shu Gavod al Amis Oder Charab Onar Potter. So we're starting Daf Samach Aleph Mud Aleph at the Mishnah, 15 lines into the Amud. So again, over Goder Shu Gavod al Amis. So if you have a fire, okay, so we're talking about fires and burning stuff and what happens. So who's responsible to foot the bill? So if you have a fire that crosses a fence that is 4 amis tall, or derech harabim, or rishus harabim, by way of the rishus harabim, across the rishus harabim, onar, or across the river, potter. In these scenarios, he's potter. Beltanya, frak the Gemara, but we learned in the Brisa over derech goder shehu gavoa arba amis chayiv. But we have a Brisa that says that if the fire passes over a fence that is 4 amis chayiv, so omer pape tanadidon. Okay, so our Tana is moving from top down. So meaning Sheish Amis Potter. So if the wall was 6 amis tall, so then you're going to be Potter if the fire crosses that wall. Chomish Amis Potter. Even if it's 5 amis Potter. Ad Arba Amis Potter. And even if the wall is 4 amis, you're still going to be Potter is considered high enough, but kilu ad arba amas until 4, and we say ad ve'ad bichlal. 4 and 4 is included, right? And the until means until and including 4. That if it is 4 amas, you will be Potter if the fire crosses. Tanabara, and then this other brisa teaches milamato lamalo, from bottom up. So kochoshev shtei amas chayiv. If it's only 2 amas tall, so then chayiv if the fire goes over it. Shalish amis, if it's 3 amis tall, chayiv, you're also chayiv ad arb amis until, but not including ad velo ad bichlal, until but not including 4 amis chayiv, you're going to be chayiv. But once it is 4 amis, then you're going to be potter. Rav says Rav dal amis sha'amu de potter. When we say that dal amis is, if the wall is dal amis 4 amis tall, then you are potter if the fire gets across. Afilu b'steikotzim, even if on the other side of the wall there is a highly flammable thorn field. I guess they're growing thorns. For what? Why would you want a thorn? I don't know. So Omer Rav Pape, when we svaskotzim v'mala dalet amas, but you have to have 4 amas from the edge of the thorns and the top of the wall, right? If you have a 4 amas wall, but you have these huge thorns that are 20 amas tall, and the fire catches fire on it, so then that's a different story. So you have to have 4 amas between the top of the thorns and the top of the wall. Rav says, Rav loshanu ela beko lachas. Okay, so Rav says that when we said that a 4 amas tall wall is enough, that is if it is a tall fire, like in a vertical fire. Aval b'nichpefes, if it's there's different explanations of what this means, but if it's a fire that's being blown in the wind, let's say, is one definition. So afilu ad mea ama, even if the wall is 100 amas, but if it can get blown in the wind over the wall, I guess chayiv. Shmuel says maslisim b'nichpefes. No, our Mishnah is saying that 4 is enough even if it is nichpefes, even if it's like blown in the wind. Aval bekolachas, if it's just like I guess like a stand-up kind of fire, afilu kolshu potter, even any kind of separation would be enough for that. Tanikavosa de Rav, we have a brisa supporting Rav's view, which is when do we say that a 4 amas wall is enough? Bekolachas, when it is a stand-up fire, aval benichpefes, but if it's like blowing in the wind, being blown by the strong wind kind of fire, ve'etzim mitzuinla, and there is fuel for it to feed on, afilu ad mea mil, even if the wall is 100 mil tall. Interesting. Chayv. I think it's saying 100 mil tall. What does that even mean? One second. Let me look that up just to be sure. So in this context, we're talking about like a road, crossing the road. So even if the road was 100 mil long, like the distance, I guess, you'd be chayv. Where am I? Okay. Mil chayv. Okay. Avinar or shlulis shemchav chav ches amis pater. If the fire crossed a river or a shlulis, we can explain what a shlulis is in a few minutes. That are 8 amis wide pater. Okay. You see what I meant by it's a boring daf? It's just like not hard. It's like very technical, and you just got to read it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's not hard at all. Like we basically did like the first Amud in like 5 minutes, and there's just not much personality in it. I guess maybe that's the point. There's not much personality. There's not much character. You just got to like read it and work through the technicalities and move on. Derech harab. If the fire goes by way of Rosh Hashanah, Mantana, who is this Tana, Omer, Rav, says Reb Eliezer, it's Reb Eliezer the Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah. We're going to get to this Mishnah in a few minutes. Reb Eliezer, Omer, says Reb Eliezer, Sheish Esrei Amis, Kederech Rosh Harabim. That we're talking about 16 Amis. Onohar, which is the size of Rosh Hashanah. Onohar, or a river. Rav Omer says Rav, Nohar Mamish, an actual river. Ushmul Omer, Arisa, the Daloi, even just a like Amos Hamayim, like where the people would like get water for their fields from. All right. Manda Omenar Mamish, the one who says that the separation is like an actual river. Afal Gav Deleka Maya, even if there's no water in it, but even an empty river would be a separation, a significant enough separation for the fire. Manda Omer Arisa Didaloi. So the one who says that the separation is just this, like, I guess it's just, it doesn't sound like a particularly big place where they would draw water from for the fields. So he is beimaya in, so only if there is water in it would it be a separation. Aval leis beimaya lo, but if there's no water in it, then it would not be a sufficient separation. Hasam, where am I? Tananosim, we learned in a mission in Peah, Ve'elam afsikin lefeah. These are considered separations for Peah, meaning, if you have a field and you have to figure out, do I have to separate, is it one field? Is it multiple fields? Do I need to separate Peah once for all of it, or separately because they're separate fields? So what's considered a divider? Hanachal v'ashlulis. A nachal, a stream, and a shlulis. Okay. V'derech hayochid, and a derech hayochid, which I guess is like 4 amas or something. V'derech harabim, and derech harabim, it's like a larger road, I guess like 16 amas wide. My shlulis, what's a shlulis? Amr of Yehuda, Amr Shmuel, Makom Shmegisham Sholin Sham, a place where like rainwater gathers there. Rebbeivai, Amr Yochanan, Amas Hamayim, Shemchalekes Shalol, Lagape, a collection of Amas Hamayim, like this place that there would be water there to water the fields, and that you use, I guess, to water like the fields or whatever. Okay. Manda Amr Makom She Me Gishamim Sholin Sham Kolshkin Amas Hamayim. So the one who says that the place where the water gathers there would be enough to be a separation between the fields, and certainly this Amas Hamayim, Umanda Omer Amas Hamayim, Avamakom Shmegisham Sholin Sham Lo Misapke, Lo Mafsake. The opinion who says that the Amas Hamayim makes a separation between the fields, but the place where the rainwater gathers would not be considered a separation. Dahanu Baigani Da'ara Mikru, because they're not called, I guess, a separation. They're called like Baigani Da'ara, bowls in the land, and bowls in the land, I guess, are not enough for a separation. New Mishnah Amadlik Besoch Shelo, a fellow who lights a fire in his own property. Adkama Taver Adleka. So the question is, how much space do you have to leave around the fire in order for it to be considered safe, right? Meaning, if you make a fire and then all of a sudden like it gets out of control and like all this damage occurs, and you say, well, I left like 3 feet of space between the fire and all the stuff that got damaged, like, is that considered responsible or irresponsible, right? How much like room do you need to leave around the fire in order for it to be safe? So madlik b'soch shalo, somebody who lights a fire in his own property, how much distance does there have to be cleared away around it, that if the fire traveled more than that distance, you'd be potter because you were considered responsible, acting responsibly. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer roin also ki'ilu hu be'emtza beis kor. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, well, we treat it as if he's in the middle of a base core, which means that you have half a base core in all directions. Okay. Rabbi Elazar Omer tezayin amis. Rabbi Elazar says 16 amis, like we saw before. Kidei Rishus Harabim, like the width of Rishus Harabim. Rabbi Akiva Omer says, Rabbi Akiva 50 amis. You have to have 50 amis in all directions in order for it to be considered safe. Rabbi Shimon Omer says, Rabbi Shimon Shalim Yishalim Amaviris Habeir, that Akol Lefi Adleka, everything depends on the size. There's no predefined amount. It's relative to the size of the fire. In fact, the Gemara relates that Rabbi Shimon Shiur B'Tleika, does Rabbi Shimon not hold of actual sizes and measurements when it comes to a fire? But we learn in the Mishnah, Lo Yamid Adam Taner B'Soch Haboyis, a fellow should not put an oven in his house because it's dangerous, right? Especially back then, a fire could mamish burn down the whole town. So Ella Imkain Yesh Al Gabo Gove Talid Amas, unless there is 4 amas of space between the top of the oven and the roof. Haya Maimido Ba'aliyah. Now, if you put the oven on like the upper level, so I assume that you still have to have 4 amas of space above it. So achi tachtov mazeva shloshet tfachim, and below it you have to have like pitch or something that's 3 tfachim thick, right, to be fireproof, I guess. Uvakira, and if we're talking about a stove, which is a less strong fire, tefach, then this I guess plaster would only need to be like 1 tefach thick. Hizik mishalim mashisik. Now it sounds like to me like according to BavaKama, and even with these precautions, still, if damage occurs, the damager, the person who's fired is going to be chayv. Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon lo nemru shurun alalu ela shem izik potter milashalim. Says Reb Shimon, no, we have these measurements so that if it causes damage, you're going to be potter if you followed these guidelines. Okay, so we see that Reb Shimon seems to be saying, look, there are some guidelines that you can follow, not that there's no guidelines. Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Bar Avua Akol Lefi Gova Adleka says Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Bar Avua that it sounds like Reb Shimon's opinion is a relative opinion, that like I guess even when he gives these shiurim, it depends on how big the oven is and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I guess the bigger the fire, the more space you have to leave or something. Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel halacha ki Reb Shimon, that the halacha is take like Reb Shimon, that I guess it's relative. V'chein Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel halacha ki Reb Shimon. Okay. Next Mishnah. Hamadlik es ha'gorish v'yibo kelim. Oh, so we've seen this before. Have we even seen this before recently? I don't know. I can't remember. But maybe what we saw recently is an animal that falls into the pit and they're kelim, right? Because Rabbi Yehuda says that you're chayiv for kelim in a pit, which is unrelated, but he also says that you're chayiv for kelim in a gadish, right? That and this is exactly what we're talking about here, that if you have a pile of barley or something, and then inside though you have some treasure hidden, well, if you burn down the barley, you can be potter for the treasure. Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to be chayiv for the treasure. So, or our typical example would of course be pizza, right? So you have a pile of barley, and inside the pile of barley you have a pie pizza. So, right, my mistake. I don't want to confuse you and make you think about treasure. Pizza. Says the Mishnah, Hamadlika is starting from the beginning. Hamadlika is a gadish v'yibo kelim. So a fellow who burns down a pile, and there were vessels in the pile. Vidalku, and they got caught on. They got burned. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda Mishalim ma shebesochos. Rabbi Yehuda says, well, you have to pay for the stuff that's in the pile. The Chacham Omer, as the Chacham say, Einu Mishalim Ela Gadish Shalchitin or Shalsorin. The Chacham say, no, you only pay for a pile of wheat or barley. Kilu, if you have a pile of barley and you burn it down, and there's a bunch of stuff in there, but they were hidden in there. So Chacham say, no, you just pay for the value of a pile of barley. Regardless of, as though it were just entirely a pile of barley. If there was now this is something we've seen about 1,000 times. Maybe 1,000 is an exaggeration. Maybe like 2 times, maybe 3. So if there was a pile and there was a goat that was tied to the pile, and there is an eved that was nearby but not tied to the pile or anything, and they all got burnt in the fire. So you're going to be chayiv to pay for the pile and for the goat. And in terms of the eved, he should have run away. So you're completely potter for the eved, but you're going to be chayiv for the monetary damage caused by burning down the pile and the goat. Eved kafuslo, but if the eved was tied to the pile, vigidi samachlo, and the goat is nearby, vinisraf imo, and all of them got burnt. So you can be potter for all of it, right? Potter, you can be potter for all of it, right? The goat should have run away. And in terms of the pile, since you essentially killed the eved, so you're chayiv misa. Come live you're chayiv misa for the eved, so therefore you're potter for the pile, because you come live b'drab you're chayiv for kind of the more severe punishment, which in this case you'd be chayiv misa for killing the eved. Therefore you're potter for paying for the paying money for the pile. Now getting back to the pile and the stuff hidden in it, the Chacham agree with Rabbi Yehuda that if a person burns down like a tall building, the Chacham agree with Rabbi Yehuda that in that case you would pay for everything inside, because people normally leave stuff inside houses, inside buildings. So in that case, so unlike the pile, where the Chacham say you'd be potter for if there's random stuff hidden in the pile, but if you burn down like a building, so the Chacham say you'd be chayiv for burning that down, because they agree with Rabbi Yehuda you'd be chayiv for the stuff in. Well, everyone says you'd be chayiv for burning it down, but they agree with Rabbi Yehuda that you'd be chayiv for the stuff in the building, because people leave stuff in buildings. Okay. Rav Kahana says, Rav Kahana machlokas b'madlik b'soch shelo v'alcha v'achla b'soch shel chaveru. Okay, so says Rav Kahana, this machlokas about the Chacham say, so Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayiv for even the stuff hidden in the pile. The Chacham say that you're only chayiv for the pile, but as if there was nothing hidden in it. This machlokas is only when the fire originated in your property and then it spread to your friend's property and your friend's pile got burnt. So then there's this machlokas. Rabbi Yehuda mechayiv. Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to be chayiv to pay for the stuff that's hidden in the pile. The Chacham say that you're potter for it. However, but if you push it, go into your friend's property and burn down his pile, everybody agrees, even the Chacham agree, you pay for everything, even the stuff hidden in the pile. Rava says to Rav Kahana, 1 second, I don't agree with that distinction, because if so, Adatani Seifa, we make a distinction in the Seifa. Modim Chachamim Rabbi Yehuda, that the Chachamim agree with Rabbi Yehuda, b'madlikas abira, that if you burn down a building, she'mishalim kumash b'socha, that you have to pay for all of it, not just the building itself, but also everything inside the building. Because people normally leave stuff in buildings. So we should make this distinction as well. That when do we say that there's this machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon? Wait, what? Right, that when do we have this machlokas? When the fire originates in your property and then it goes and burns down your friend's pile. So the Chacham say you're only chayiv for the pile, not for what's in it. Rabbi Yehuda says you're also chayiv for what's in it. Aval, but we should have this distinction in the Mishnah. Madlik besoch shel chavero. But if you light the fire in your friend's property, everyone agrees that you're are going to be chayiv for everything in the pile. So meaning, Rav Kahana says that this machlokas is only when the fire originates in your property and then spreads. But if you started a fire in your friend's property, you can be chayiv. Everyone agrees you can be chayiv for even the stuff that's hidden in it. Rava's kasha on Rav Kahana, that was Rav Kahana's opinion. Rava's kasha on Rav Kahana is that, well, in the Mishnah we already make a distinction. We already give an example of a place where everyone agrees that you're chayiv even for the contents, and that is a building. If you burn down a building, you're chayiv for even what's inside. So once we're making that distinction, Rav Kahana, if you're correct that there's an additional distinction, which is when you light the fire in your friend's property, so then we should make that distinction in the Mishnah as well. So Ela Amar Rava, rather says Rava, it's not so clean cut like that. Rather, b'tarte plige. The machlokes is twofold. Plige b'madlik b'soch shelo v'achavaach b'soch shel chaver. So if the fire originates in your property and then spreads to your friend's property, so that's the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham that we see in our Mishnah. The Rabbi Yehuda mechayev ataman boish. The Rabbi Yehuda says you chayev not just for the pile but for what's hidden inside. Rabbanan savrei lo mechayev, and the rabbis say you are not chayev for the stuff hidden in there. Uflige nami, but there's an additional machlokas, which is b'madlik b'shel chavero, when you light a fire in your friend's property. The Rabbi Yehuda, his opinion remains the same, that you pay for whatever is in the pile. Where am I? Even if there's like a random thing in there, like a wallet. But the rabbis hold, look, it depends. It depends. Since you're lighting a fire in your friend's field, so you're not going to be completely potter for the stuff in there, but you're not chayiv for absolutely everything. Kelim shedarkon lehatm begadish, things that you would normally keep in a gadish. Kigon, for example, morigin v'chlei baker, like morigin and clay baker. What are those things? Morigin crushim dekuvim b'hem yisedis v'dashim b'hem esetavah. Okay, these like farm vessels, these farm tools. So if those are hidden in the pile, the Chacham say you would be chayiv for those. Hu de mishalim, but kelim shein darken latmin begodish lo mishalim. But vessels that like a wallet, I guess we just gave it as an example, that you wouldn't normally keep in a pile, so you'd be potter for that. Okay, and so meaning according to the Chacham, there's kind of like three distinctions, right? There's if the fire originates in your property and then spreads to somebody else's property, so Yehuda would say that you're chayiv for the pile. The Chacham would say that you're chayiv for the pile, but potter for what's inside of it. Now, if you lit the fire in your friend's property, so Yehuda would say again you're chayiv for the pile and everything inside of it. The Chacham would say that you're chayiv for the pile and things inside of it that would be expected to be inside of it, but not random things. Now, if you go and burn down a building, which is a place where there's stuff, people keep stuff in buildings, so even the Chacham agree 100% with Rabbi Yehuda that you be chayiv for the building as well as everything inside of it. That was daf samach aleph Masechta BavaKama. Yeah, as I said, it's a pretty short daf, and it's just kind of you just kind of moved for the most part. We talked about fires and stuff. All right, peace out.